You definitely know, or at least heard, that stretching has many beneficial effects for your health and for your athletic performance. And there exist many different stretching methods from which you can choose from. But all of them can be divided into two major types: static and dynamic. But which of these is the better one?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, this you crazy mother.
I will first of all give you a general overview about the different stretching methods, and then we will compare them. By the way, I made another video about why stretching has its positive effects, where I dig deeper into the science behind stretching, so make sure to check that out as well. And don't forget to subscribe for the newest workouts, tutorials and useful information. Let's start with the static stretching. Static stretching means stretching the muscles to the farthest point and holding the position without any other movements involved. One of the static stretching methods is the passive one. Here, the muscle you want to stretch is completely relaxed, agonist as well as antagonist. You move your body into a position where muscle tension of the target muscle increases. And you hold this position for at least 20 seconds, but not longer than a minute. To increase intensity, you can help yourself with an object, for example a chair, where you can put your leg on. But take care, increased intensity means higher risk for injuries. Another type is the active stretching. In this type, you use one muscle party to stretch the other one. That means contracting your antagonist to stretch your agonist. And the contraction of one helps in the relaxation of the other. An example would be to stretch one leg in the air. The antagonist is completely under tension while the backside is relaxed and stretched. As active stretching positions are pretty intense, you should and usually can only hold the form not longer than 10 to 15 seconds. And another static stretching method would be the proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. The PNF is a method which both contracts but also stretches the target muscle group. And this method is, I would say, maybe for people who are a bit more experienced in stretching already. But fact is, it's highly effective. Originally designed as a technique for rehabilitation, you can target specific muscle groups and increase flexibility as well as muscle strength enormously. The order is more or less like this. You position the muscle group so that the muscle is stretched but also under tension. You contract the muscle groups for up to 10 seconds while a band or a partner applies resistance to inhibit movements. Then you relax the target muscle for some seconds. Lastly, you with your band or your partner applies a deeper stretch into a greater range of motion for up to 30 seconds. And you can repeat the whole procedure a couple of times. And there are of course many other variations and methods, for example isometric stretching. And now let's talk about dynamic stretching. Dynamic stretching methods, in contrast to static ones, always have kind of a swinging motion with them. In ballistic stretching, you take the momentum from a rotary motion to force the stretching of one muscle group out of its usual range of motion. It's a pretty rough and aggressive method, and I would not really recommend that to anyone, as the risk for injuries is relatively high and the muscles don't have time to adapt to the new stretch. Then we have the classical dynamic stretching. These ones, in contrast, focus on slow spring motions to slowly push the muscle out of its range of motion. And no fast, abrupt movements should be performed here. Then there is another method called active isolated stretching. You position yourself, contract the antagonist of the target muscle you want to stretch, and then you slowly move into the stretch. And you hold it for like 2 seconds. Our body has a protection mechanism when we overstretch at a certain point. And with this method, you basically step with one foot over the threshold and then back. Alright, now we have the brief overview about the stretching methods, but the main question still remains. Which of those is better? And the answer is, it all depends when you stretch and what your goal is. Both dynamic and static stretching methods have the end goal to loosen up your muscle cells and the collagen fibers, increase the range of motion and thus flexibility, and prevent injuries. And based on this, we can evaluate both methods. Dynamic stretching is great when you warm up, but it's not good as a warm-up by itself, but additionally to one. When you are warm, your muscle cells are flooded with blood and your collagen fibers are more elastic. And while doing dynamic stretching, you use the full range of motion, and with that you additionally keep your muscles warm. In contrast to static stretching, which decreases blood flow through constricting the blood vessels, dynamic stretching increases it. What you also need to understand is that while stretching, you let your nervous system adapt and tolerate the degree of muscle extension without firing pain signals. This helps your muscles to be more extensible, thus it can prevent injuries. So dynamic stretching prepares your nervous system for the upcoming motions. By the way, I made another video about pain and how pain functions in the brain and why we actually feel pain. If you're interested in that, I left the link in the description below. All in all, multiple studies have shown that dynamic stretching is the best before a workout. You will have more energy and a better performance than if you don't stretch or do static stretch exercises. However, when muscle cells were filled with blood, static stretching exercises showed better results after a workout in terms of long-term improvement of range of motion and flexibility. It could be shown that especially PNF stretching is highly effective and better to increase the range of motion on a long term. Why it is like that is until now not 100% clear. Maybe that's because you let your body and nervous system get used to the intensity for a longer time than when doing dynamic stretches, as you do static stretching exercises usually for a longer period of time. Nevertheless, there are generally many contradictions and different opinions about that. So definitely more studies must be performed to make a clear statement about that. To sum it up, dynamic stretching before a workout but after the warm-up, and static stretching after the workout. Keep in mind to do everything cautiously, clean, and only if you're warmed up. Stretching has many positive effects on your health and also on your athletic performance, so don't underestimate it. If you liked that video and found it informative, don't forget to subscribe. Every subscriber is appreciated. Thanks for your support, take care, and see you next time.